Hello again, everyone. Let's move on and complete the chapter. The last part of the chapter talks about the following: the purpose of business activity, the concept of added value, the importance of added value, and ways to increase added value. Before we start, let's refresh a few things we learned earlier in this chapter. We have unlimited wants and desires, the factors of production needed to make the goods and services are in limited supply. Scarcity results from limited resources and unlimited wants. Choices are necessary when resources are scarce, which leads to opportunity cost. And specialization increases efficiency. From this list, we can clearly see that we are almost at the end of the chapter. And funnily enough, we have hardly discussed about businesses or their activities, whereas that's what the chapter is all about. Now, where does business activity fall into the concepts we have learned so far? All fits in together perfectly once we get to know about the purpose of business activities. The purpose of business activities can be explained in three folds, which are as follows. They combine scarce factors of production to produce goods and services. Businesses produce goods and services that are required to satisfy the needs and wants of the customers. Goods can include the phone, tab, or laptop that you are currently using to view this video on Tutors Inc., or services like this particular educational lecture. And finally, they employ workers and pay them wages to allow them to consume goods made by others. These 3 points above summarizes the purpose of business activity. When we are talking about business activity, however, there's this one very important concept that we are yet to cover. This is something all businesses attempt to achieve and most likely would not have operated without it, and it's called added value. Added value is the difference between the selling price of a product and the cost of materials bought to make the product. This means if a pen is bought for $3 and the materials used to produce the pen is $1, then the company added value worth of $2. Now, assuming the value is not added by companies, they won't be able to bear costs such as wages, rents, managerial costs, and advertisements, and so on. And obviously, without added value, companies won't be able to make any profit. This is essentially why added value is so crucial for businesses. As you can imagine, it is highly desirable for businesses to increase their added value. But how does a business do so? There are mainly two ways to increase added value. First of all, they can increase their selling price and keep the cost of materials same. This is possible for businesses who can create a high brand image for their company and their products and services. If the consumers have a good impression of the business, then only they will pay extra for the same quantity of product or service. For example, an online clothing company opened a new store for its customers. They decorate the store and hire knowledgeable staff who can serve the customers. Due to these added services, they increase the price, hence increasing the added value. However, it is important to remember that increased prices in such scenarios can increase other costs as well. For instance, in the above example, with increased selling price, the company will have to bear additional expenses like rent and salaries for the new store that they got and the knowledgeable staff whom they hired. Another approach is by lowering the cost of materials. One way to do that is by buying materials in bulk so that the cost of one unit falls. This is essentially what we understand by economies of scale,
but we'll be covering that in chapters to come.
other ways can be by sourcing cheaper materials. Therefore, customers pay the same price for the product, but the company bears lower costs to make the product, hence increasing the company's added value. For example, a shoemaking company sources cheaper materials from local stores instead of buying the materials from abroad. This will drastically lower costs of the materials bought. Customers will pay this product for the same price, but the company will have to pay lower costs for its materials, hence increasing added value. However, it is important to remember that lowering cost of materials may lead to a fall in quality of the product because of the cheaper materials used. This can greatly impact the perception that the customers have of the company. With this concept, we are at the end of the chapter. Let's see what we have learned in this video. The purpose of business activity, the concept of added value, the importance of added value, and how to increase added value.